Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sam, and today I'm going to be sharing my most anticipated 2021 book releases. What I'm going to do with this video is split it into sections based on genre, and then I'll leave timestamps in the description just in case you did want to flick ahead at any point. I'm not actually sure how many books I've got on this list. I know that I've got a couple of fantasy, a few that are more general fiction or contemporary fiction, and then a few romance and a few thrillers. Okay, so the first book on my list is probably not going to be a surprise to anyone, and that is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. This is the next book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, which is a really super popular fantasy romance series that I read over the summer and really enjoyed. The first three books in the series follow a young woman called Cara who is out hunting in the woods by her house when she kills a fairy, and as punishment she has to go and live across the wall in the fairy kingdom, where she starts to learn about their internal politics, and there's also this curse that has affected the fae that she's living with, and it's all very mysterious. It's really hard to describe the first book because it felt like a very long introduction to what is the rest of the series. Books 2 and 3 go off on a completely different tangent. If you've read the series, then you probably know what I mean. There is also a short novella that I haven't actually read yet. I think it's called A Court of Frost and Starlight, but I am planning to read that soon. I thought it'd be a really good book to read over winter, so if I don't get around to it in December, then I'll definitely read it in January before the next book comes out. I don't think much has actually been released about A Court of Silver Flames. All I really know about this book is that it's going to follow a side character from the original trilogy, and I don't really know how to feel about that because this character was probably my least favourite side character from the series. However, I do know that another side character is also meant to have a more prominent role, and I did really like that character, and so I'm kind of intrigued and I'm really hoping that I like it because I do like Sarah J Maas's writing, and I think that she builds these stories that are very entertaining, and so fingers crossed that I do actually enjoy it. The next book on my list is Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo, and this is the next book in the Grishaverse series, which is one of my favourite fantasy series. You have the Shadow and Bone trilogy, which came out in 2012, I think the first book came out, and then you also have the Six of Crows duology and finally the King of Scars duology, and Rule of Wolves is the second book in the King of Scars duology. Shadow and Bone follows a girl called Alina who finds out that she is a member of the Grisha. She has these special powers, and her powers have the potential to save her country. Six of Crows, on the other hand, has a heist plot, and I've seen a few people compare it to Ocean's 11, but it follows Kaz Brecker, who enlists the help of a group of people to break into a fortress that supposedly can't be broken into. It's set in the same world as Shadow and Bone, but in a place called Ketterdam, which is meant to be inspired by Amsterdam, whereas Shadow and Bone is set in a place called Ravka, which is meant to be inspired by Russia. I haven't actually read King of Scars yet because I read the first 5 books in the series within the space of about a week because I was obsessed and I was loving it so much, and I felt kind of burnt out afterwards, and I wanted to take a bit of a break and then return to it later. But I am definitely planning to read King of Scars at some point. I think what I might do is wait until the week before Rule of Wolves comes out, and then I can read them both back to back. Before I read the Grishaverse, I wasn't reading much fantasy. I hadn't read much fantasy for years and years, and so even though Shadow and Bone does get a few mixed reviews, I absolutely loved that series purely for the fact that it did inspire me to start reading fantasy again. I've read so many fantasy books since then that I probably wouldn't have picked up if it hadn't been for those books. I am also really excited for the Netflix adaptation, which I think is coming out next year. I'm pretty sure I've seen that they've started filming it already, and so hopefully they do a good job and it is really good. Okay, so next I'm going to move on to general fiction, starting with Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas, which is a prequel to The Hate U Give. The Hate U Give is a young adult contemporary which follows a 16-year-old girl called Star who is getting a lift home with a friend one evening when they're pulled over by the police, and her friend, who is unarmed, is shot and killed by a police officer, and Star is the only witness. The Black Lives Matter movement is a really central part to the book, and it's also been turned into a film that I haven't seen yet, but I've also heard really good things about that as an adaptation. Concrete Rose is set 17 years before the events that happen in The Hate U Give, and it follows Star's dad Maverick when he was a young man. I don't read a lot of young adult contemporary, but I did really like this book, and I especially liked Angie Thomas's writing and the way that she wrote characters. I think this is one of those books that a lot of people are going to be talking about next year, and I'm really looking forward to seeing if it does live up to that hype. The next book on my list is Malibu Rising by Talia Jenkins Jenkins Reid. And Talia Jenkins Reid is a really popular author. You might have heard of her because she wrote The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and Daisy Jones and the Six, which are both super popular on BookTube and on Bookstagram and just in general in the online book community. From what I know about this book, it's about siblings who are rich and famous, or I think their dad is a famous singer, and at the end of the summer they throw this big party, and by midnight the party has got out of control and the house is burnt down. And then I think some secrets start to be revealed. The main reason I'm excited for this book is because The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is one of my favourite books that I've read this year. And I did like Daisy Jones and the Six, or I didn't hate it. It wasn't my favourite, but I did really like the way that Talia Jenkins Reid wrote her characters. I think she does a really good job of writing characters that feel very real, even if you don't always like them. So yeah, I have really high hopes for this book, and I really hope that it falls into the Evelyn Hugo category rather than Daisy Jones. Okay, so moving on to romance books that I'm looking forward to, starting with The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary. This is a contemporary romance which follows a woman called Addie, and her and her sister are about to go on this road trip to Scotland to go to this wedding. However, just as they're setting off, a car goes into the back of them and it turns out to be Addie's ex-boyfriend. And I don't think Addie has seen or spoke to him for about 2 years since they broke up, but him and his friend are also on the way to this wedding. And so because their car is now out of action, Addie and her sister have no choice but to let them share their car. And then I'm guessing that on the way they start to talk about their relationship or what it was, and things kind of go from there. Beth O'Leary writes these books that are light-hearted in general in the tone, but the content does deal with real issues. For example, in The Flat Share we had a character who was dealing with an emotionally abusive ex, and in The Switch you have characters that are dealing with grief. So yeah, I'm hoping that I like The Road Trip just as much as I liked her other books. The next book on my list is One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, who is the same author that wrote Red, White and Royal Blue. That is one of my favourite romance books that I've read this year. One Last Stop is a female-female romance set in New York City, and it's following a woman who has a crush on a woman that she sees quite regularly on the subway, but then she learns that this woman has been displaced in time from the 1970s. Like I said, Red, White and Royal Blue was one of my favourite romance books that I read this year, and so I have quite high hopes that this is going to be one of my favourite romance books that I read next year. I really enjoyed Casey McQuiston's writing, and I've seen a few early reviews from booktubers that have got advanced copies, and so far they all seem really positive, and so I'm really hopeful that I'm going to love it. The final romance book on my list is Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert, and this is the third and I think final book in the Brown Sisters series. I actually read the first two books in October and November and really enjoyed them. This is an adult romance book that follows Eve, who is the youngest sister of Chloe and Danny, who are the main female characters in the first two books. And I think the general gist of this book is that no matter how hard she tries, everything in Eve's life just seems to go wrong. I think she accidentally ruins a wedding and her parents turn around and say, this can't go on, you need to get your life together and grow up. So she gets this job working in a bed and breakfast, and the owner is basically the complete opposite of her, because while her life is out of control, he is very much in control. And I'm guessing because this is a romance book, the sparks start to fly and they end up falling for each other. What I really love about Talia Hibbert's books is the way that she creates these characters that you really fall in love with and you really root for, which is exactly what you want in a romance book. This is another one of those books where I've seen a few early reviews that are really positive, and so I have high hopes that this is either going to be as good, if not better, than the first two books in the series. Okay, so I'm going to finish with a few thrillers that I'm really excited for next year, starting with Survive the Night by Riley Sager. From my very limited knowledge of this book, I think it's about a woman who is driving home from college, or she's sharing a ride home from college with a stranger who she's only just met. I think her college has this bulletin board where you can get in touch with people who might be driving in the same direction as you. So she's in this car with this guy that she's only just met, and they're on this long drive home, and I think she starts to suspect that he's actually a serial killer. I've read two of Riley Sager's books, Home Before Dark and Lock Every Door, and I gave both of them 5 stars, and so I'm pretty sure that I'm going to love this too, unless something goes horribly wrong. But if you do like thrillers that build a lot of suspense and tension, then I would really recommend checking out Riley Sager's books. The next book on my list is The Whole Truth by Cara Hunter, and this is the 5th book in the D.I. Adam Fawley series, which is a British crime thriller series set in Oxford. And with each book we're following this team of detectives as they investigate various crimes. From what I know about this book, it follows the team as they investigate after a university student accuses one of their professors of sexual assault, and the team think that they know what what they're going to be going into, but they couldn't be more wrong because the predator is a woman within the department who is really highly regarded, and the victim is a 6-foot male rugby player. I actually have an advanced copy of this book through NetGalley, and I've been trying to restrain myself from reading it straight away because it doesn't come out until next year, like early next year, and I want to try and read it as close to the publication date as I can because I want it to be fresh in my mind. What I really love about this series is the twists, because the way that Cara Hunter writes these stories, you can't guess where they're going. Like, you can't. If anyone has been able to read these books and has been able to guess the ending, I would be really, really shocked. So yeah, if you're looking for a British crime series that's just completely unpredictable, then I'd really, really recommend Cara Hunter's books. The final book on my list is Her Last Holiday by C.L. Taylor. This is a psychological thriller about a woman called Fran, and her sister Jenna went on this wellness retreat a few years ago and disappeared. The owner of that retreat has spent the last couple of years in prison after he was charged with the deaths of 2 people. However, he's always refused to speak about what happened to Jenna, who was considered his 3rd victim. Fran books herself onto his upcoming retreat, the first one that he's running since he was released from prison, because she wants to try and work out what actually happened to her sister. I really love C.L. Taylor's books. I think she writes great thrillers that have really clever twists. I'm pretty sure that I've read all of her books, or if not most of her books, and I think my favourite so far has probably been Sleep. I'd really, really recommend that if you're looking for a good twisty psychological thriller, but hopefully I enjoy her next book too. Okay, so those are the top 10. I think there's 10 books on this list. I don't know, I didn't count, but those are the top books that I am most excited for in 2021. Let me know if you're excited for these books, or if there's any other new releases that you're really excited for. If you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.